What's going on? This is Big G from RYDIN and welcome to another episode of Testing Rides. Today, I'm going to be testing out the 2018 Mercedes GLA 250. Welcome to the 2018 Mercedes GLA 250. This was a very important and kind of a weird car for Mercedes to bring out with, because this was the first subcompact crossover that Mercedes tried to bring out here in the United States, and it is the first time that Mercedes tried to do a front-wheel drive platform here in the United States. And honestly, this vehicle, it has paid out. This has been a hugely popular vehicle here in the United States, and pretty much, I'm pretty sure everywhere in the world, Mercedes bringing out the cheap, like a very cheap subcompact crossover with hot hatchback handling characteristics and, you know, that reasonable price point. So this one right here is the GLA 250, and technically this is the base model, and the base model starts at about $32,000 or so. So this would come standard with the inline turbocharged 4-cylinder, making 208 horsepower and 258 foot-pounds of torque. And since this vehicle is not the all-wheel drive model, which you can't get all-wheel drive on these, this only weighs about 3,300 pounds or so, which is not bad. So with that lightweight, it does 0 to 60 in about 6.5 seconds or so, which is, it's not bad, it's decently quick. But also it gets 24 in the city and 33 out on the highway, which are some pretty reasonable numbers and slightly better numbers than what the GTI gets. And that's kind of due to fairly lightweight, and also this car has one more gear than a normal GTI. So, since I said this one is a base model, this one actually has a couple options on it. So, the first option this car has on it has the LED headlights and tail lights, which honestly, if you're gonna get this car, is definitely a must. This car also has the panoramic sunroof option, which if you're gonna get this car, for me personally, it's definitely a must. And also this car has the premium package, which adds hands-free access with the push-button starter, and it comes with blind spot monitoring and heated seats and all that type of stuff. So with those couple options on the car, that brings the total of this one up to about $38,000, which again, it has about a $40,000 price point or so with the options this one has on it, but you can't get it as low, about $33,000. I'm not sure why you would, and I'm not sure anybody actually does get them that low, because at least most people who buy these cars at least get a couple of these options. My honest opinion, if I was going to get this car for myself, I don't really need the all-wheel drive, but I would at least get the LED headlights, taillight package, sunroof, and the AMG body kit, and the premium package, which this one has, and that'll put you over $42,000 or so, which again is not bad, because don't forget that this is a Mercedes, so it is quite luxurious inside and out. It drives great, it's quiet on the road, and it just feels like a very solid car. So let's talk about the styling of the GLA. So with the upcoming second generation of the GLA coming up, or the third generation, I'm not really sure. I think this one is technically a facelift, second generation. I'm not 100% sure. But with that coming up quite soon, I think the GLA design, the current GLA design, is very attractive. It looks just like a lifted hatchback. Like, it's a lot like my GTI, just sits a little higher. I mean, there are honestly not too many bad angles on this car. I like that they moved the fog lights from the previous one from the inside onto the outside, which is nice. The headlights, the LED headlights look great. The LED tail lights look great. Like, there's no bad lines on this car, to be honest. And only thing I'm not really that keen on is just the regular standard non-AMG front. But it doesn't look bad. It's just my personal preference. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of this 2018 Mercedes GLA 250. Welcome to the interior of the Mercedes GLA, the 2018 model here. And Since this car is not brand new, I'm just gonna hit on some things that I like and hit on a couple things that I don't like. So first things that I like, I love the steering wheel design. So back in 2016, all the new Mercedes products got this kind of similar steering wheel, and I like it. It's simple, it's plain, it feels nice in the hands. I like the contrast white stitching on the inside and then the aluminum around the outside of it, and then the paddle shifters on the back. They feel kind of plasticky, but you know, can't be perfect. I also like the silver kind of aluminum, like steel or whatever finish that goes across the dash here. I think that looks great. It's a lot better looking than the wood would be. Also, I like the layout. I like the layout of how the screen sits on the dash, but I don't like all these buttons here. So, you know, this is like old Mercedes here, and with the new A-Class coming out, I'm sure that there's going to be a new GLA coming soon. So like all this is probably going to be gone, and it's going to have probably the dual screens like the modern Mercedes products does. All right, so I'm pretty comfortable in the car. You guys know I'm a big dude. I can get the seat low enough and I can get it far back enough, but there's a couple things that I don't like, and you know, some people may have this problem, but some people may have this problem, some people may not have this problem. But since I'm a big dude and I have stuff here in my pocket, as you can see from this camera here, sometimes if I have something in my pocket, it changes. It could change the little wheel knob, the wheel here. So like there's been times where I'm driving the car and I take a turn and then the song changes, because when you're connected to Bluetooth, your song changes with the knob here, and it can be quite annoying. But again, most people aren't as big as I am, but again, that was quite annoying. Other thing I don't like, so I am over 6 feet tall, and even though I am over 6 feet tall, I'm not a short person, and my head is a little close to the honestly, my head's a little too close to the ceiling, to be honest. Yes, it has the nice panoramic sunroof, but you know, there's not much room above there for my head or anything like that. But so, you know, that's not that big of a deal. Again, that's probably going to be solved with the next generation of the GLA 250 or 300, whatever they're going to do. But you know, fact of the matter is, since I'm such a huge hatchback fan, I love this car a lot. I've loved it ever since it came out back in 2014, and like I would love to have a GLA 45, which is the AMG model. But you know, for this 250 here, it's pretty nice. I mean, there's a couple more things that I think that needs to be improved, like these like Ford like locks here. I mean, that's ridiculous. This car is $40,000. And also the simple fact that I'm actually going to pull you guys off the suction mount here for a second so I can show you. So if you look here, you can see the color of the car on the inside of the car, which honestly is kind of cheap looking, to be honest. Mercedes had cut a couple corners in order to make this car, you know, put this car at the price point that it is. So with the interior talked about here, let's go out and take it for a drive. Alright, let's take this bad boy out and see how this thing drives. Alright, let's go ahead and throw it into sport mode. I love these graphics too. And do a quick little pull. So, when you first head out in the road in the GLA 250, this thing got a little bit of power to it. Like, it's not quite like an AMG or like or the way power delivery is in like a GTR or something, but it's pretty stout. Like, this car does have the 208 horsepower and 258 foot-pounds of torque, and this car only weighs 3,200 pounds. So, you know, this car definitely feels quick. This is definitely an adequate engine for this vehicle of this size and this weight, for sure. So, how's this thing to drive? Well, the GLA 250 drives just like a subcompact luxury car should be. So this car rides pretty good, to be honest. Like, it doesn't quite have like a Mercedes ride, but it rides pretty good. So like over broken pavement, it could be a bit choppy, but it's still fairly smooth to drive. The suspension, like over normal roads like this road here, is not the best road ever. Like, I can feel it, but it's not jarring, it's not hurting my back or my neck or anything like that. So that's a good sign. The visibility out of the windshield in this car is pretty good, to be honest. Like, as you guys know, I'm over 6 feet tall and over 350 pounds. And as you guys know, I'm over 6 feet tall and over 350 pounds. So like, I'm a big dude. And to be honest, this, you know, the view out of all the windows is it's okay, but it's not great. So like, as you can see from here, my vision is kind of obstructed by the rearview mirror. I had the same problem when I reviewed the Infiniti QX30, which is the same as this car. And hopefully for the next generation of the GLA, they're going to fix that problem. They're going to set the seat a little bit lower, maybe, and give this car a little bit more interior space. But because this car, you know, is kind of big, but it kind of a little bit smaller inside, this car does feel super solid and super safe on the roads. This car feels nice and chunky on the road, which is kind of cool, to be honest, for a car to be, you know, 3,300 pounds and still feel like this. So I like the steering wheel design a lot. It feels really nice in the hands. It's not quite like an AMG model or nothing like that, but it has this nice perforated leather here at, what's this at? 9 and 3. I think 8-3, 9-3, I don't know. But here on the sides of the steering wheel, which feels nice, and it feels like a nice sporty steering wheel, even for kind of the more basic of the GLA 250 model here. The infotainment system is pretty nice, to be honest. Like, I mean, it has good graphics. It's pretty cool. It's pretty easy to use once you get used to it. This car doesn't have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but it's like a $350 option. And honestly, Mercedes should just add that in there and just hide it in the price of the car. That's honestly, because I mean, like, when you're looking at like compact SUVs, you know, like a $22,000 Hyundai Tucson comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard equipment, but yet this $40,000 Mercedes can't come with that. Even I think a lot of the newer Audis comes with the standard now, so Mercedes needs to get on board with that, you know, adding a little bit of value for the money when it comes to this vehicle here. So what are some things that I'm not the biggest fan of? So first of all, let's talk about the transmission. So this car has Mercedes 7-speed dual clutch transmission. So it's not the best dual clutch transmission I've ever driven, considering I do have a Golf GTI, and that's kind of one of the better dual clutch transmissions when it comes to like cheaper cars, and this is nowhere near that. Nowhere near that. But it's still good. Like, you know, it could be a bit clunky sometimes over, you know, starting and stopping and things like that. The gear shifts aren't that quick. It just, honestly, like, I feel like they should have gave this car a regular transmission instead of trying to throw a dual clutch in it. Yes, the dual clutch makes a lot more sense for something like the AMG model, but for the standard model, like, I'd have been fine with just like a standard, you know, the 8-speed or 9-speed transmission that they put in the rest of their vehicles. And I hope that the next generation of the GLA 250 is going to come with that, but I'm not sure on that. But what I can say, it is nice that this transmission has one more gear, because on the highway it could cruise at around 2,000 RPM or less at, you know, 65-70 miles an hour, which, you know, a lot of the, like, my GTI and also the new GTIs can't really do that. But, you know, I'm going around a couple corners here. It's pretty confidence inspiring. Like, it's a fun to drive car, but because this car is lifted off the ground a little bit, you know, still kind of handles like an SUV, but it's still pretty good. It's honestly not even as good. It's not bad. It's like, for SUV handling, it's right under like a Mazda CX-5, and I think for the $30,000 to $40,000 price point, the Mazda CX-5 is kind of the best, to be honest. Even though this car doesn't really directly compete with a CX-5, I think the CX-5 kind of handles a lot better. But this definitely has way more power. Honestly, besides the transmission thing, this is a smooth, comfortable, nice driving vehicle, and it's, you know, it's a great, you know, subcompact luxury crossover to get from Mercedes. And one thing I wanted to kind of hit on a little bit during this drive is 2 years ago I reviewed the the Infiniti QX30, which is exactly the same car as this. And I thought, and kind of one thing I said in the video, it's just like, why would you get a GLA? I mean, it's the same thing. To be honest, this car does feel a little bit better than, this does feel a little bit higher quality, like it's a little bit more upmarket than the Infiniti QX30. Because first thing that I didn't like about the QX30 is that it had a panoramic sunroof, but you could not open it. And that was kind of a deal breaker for me, like loving sunroofs in cars. Like, I gotta have my sunroof in a car. And because of that, you know, I didn't really like the Infiniti QX30 as much as I wish I did. But since this car, since it's the Mercedes version, it does have the panoramic sunroof that opens up, and it just feels a little bit higher quality. This car does have a couple cheap plastics in it, but it's not as many as I've seen in the Infiniti variant of this vehicle, which, you know, is to be expected. This car is a little bit more expensive than the Infiniti, but honestly, like, even though they're the same cars, I'll still prefer this one just because it feels a little bit more special than that car did. But now I got a little bit of open road. Let's do a little bit more of a pull. Yeah, this car does pick up pretty quickly. You know, that 258 foot-pounds of torque, you definitely feel that in this car. It pulls pretty nicely. And here in a second, we'll be going around some corners, and I can kind of talk to you about the handling of this car. One thing that I noticed, though, is the front-wheel drive model of the GLA 250. It doesn't put the power down very well. Like, you'll step on the gas, and the tires just spin and spin and spin for a while until it can hook up. And, you know, that's quite annoying. Like, I know that's just a typical characteristic of a front-wheel drive car with a lot of torque going to the front wheels, but a Mercedes should, you know, I feel like a Mercedes should be a little bit better than that. But that's just me. Maybe everybody else too, but honestly, it should be a little bit better than that. But still not bad. So before I get to the corners, what are the cars that compete with this car? So cars like the BMW X1 and X2 competes with this car. The Infiniti QX30, of course, which is like, you know, the same thing. The Audi Q3. So the Volvo XC40 and the V60 Cross Country both compete with this car. And also, honestly, if we're moving down market a little bit, cars like the Volkswagen Alltrack competes with this car, because the Alltrack can go up to $40,000, and this car is about that price too. And, you know, I think it all depends on what you want, because my honest opinion, I love this Mercedes a lot, and I think it is a little expensive for the size and everything, but it's a Mercedes. So I mean, you got to pay the Mercedes tax if you want a Mercedes. So I mean, that's just kind of how I feel about it. And I think this car is kind of right in the middle of the pack when it comes to those luxury subcompact crossovers. I'm a huge Volkswagen Audi fan, and I think the Q3, since it is so old at this point, it's kind of at the bottom. It has the old engine, it has the old transmission, it has the old interior infotainment system, and I think this one just has a lot more modern interior technology and everything like that. But I think cars like the Volvo XC40, even though I haven't driven it, it's probably going to be a little bit better than this. Cars like even the Volkswagen Alltrack is going to be a little better than this, just because you could get a lot more bang for the buck. Cars like and I think cars like the BMW X2 and X1 are a little bit higher than this for me, because I've driven the BMW X2 off camera. Actually, it was supposed to be the video I shot instead of the Q7, but I got a flat tire, so I had to go get something else. I think that car handles significantly better than this car does. That car handles more like a hot hatchback, and this car handles more like a regular hatchback, this handles like a standard Volkswagen Golf. And I mean, that's not a bad thing, but it's also not, you know, the most sportiest handling vehicle. Because I know you guys know there's the AMG model to this car, so the GLA 45, and I think they kind of held this car back a lot just to kind of make room and make sense of the extra price point you're paying for the. I think they kind of held this one back, and I think Mercedes held this one back just because there is the GLA 45 AMG, which is the very fast model of this vehicle. And so honestly, I think that for the next generation of the GLA, they shouldn't hold this car back so much, because this could as well be a great handling car, but because it sits so high and, you know, it's kind of softer than the GLA 45. You know, it doesn't handle as good as it should be. But most people who are buying this car, you know, honestly, I don't think they care about that. But they brought this car out to aim it at millennials, and millennials, for the most part, like a sporty handling car. So for the next one, I'm gonna need Mercedes to make the GLA handle a little bit better. You get some good handling with the non-AMG model, because everybody may want the AMG model, but everybody cannot afford the AMG model, and you might only be able to afford one of these standard GLA 250s with a couple options on it. So my overall verdict of this car, me personally, I would buy it because I'm a huge fan of the hatchback and kind of subcompact luxury SUVs like this with the nice, powerful engines. I mean, because this vehicle has good power, it's very comfortable, it's easy to see out of. It gets reasonable fuel economy for the amount of power and weight that this vehicle has. And I think this is a solid vehicle. I wish it was a little bit bigger, but they do have the GLC if you want a bigger car. But I mean, like, not in terms of like actual size of the car, just as terms of interior space. And I wish some of the interior quality was a little bit better. But besides that, this is an excellent vehicle, and I would highly recommend buying the 2018 Mercedes GLA 250. So if you like this video, go ahead and hit me with a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and keep riding with me. Thanks for watching.